Darren Mell is president of Voice of the Voiceless and a licensed pastor serving Agape First Ministries. As a former gay Christian, Darren intimately understands the dramatic and nuanced difference between the God and faith he professed and the all-powerful God and authentic church he now serves and enjoys. Darren is the leading voice on current issues, taking the church by storm, and clearly focuses the church in the spiritually profitable direction. His work across various fields and expertise in security and risk make him any leader's go-to resource on precise Christian response to historical and current trends. Let's welcome Darren Mell.
Let me be the first to welcome you to Voice of the Voiceless. My name is Darren Mell and I am the president. Voice of the Voiceless is a 501c3 nonprofit organization that amplifies the voices of ex-LGBT and helps seekers in reconciling faith, behaviors, and identity. If you are looking for someone to defend the rights of former homosexuals, individuals with unwanted same-sex attraction, and their families, we are your go-to resource. We also support the faith-based community and work actively in the United States and abroad, defending the rights of individuals to share their views of faith and homosexuality publicly. I pray you will join with us as we speak the truth to the nations.
Hello, everyone. My name is Darren Mell, and I'm president of Voice of the Voiceless. And today I have Arthur Goldberg, a friend, and Andrew Rodriguez, the founder of Psychobible. And today we're going to talk with Arthur about a court case that he's been through. And our last interview with you, Arthur, was about the JONAH case. And we went through some of the issues of the injustice where they denied you certain expert witnesses because the court said you can't have witnesses that believe that you can leave homosexuality and experience change, that would be like believing the earth is flat. And so we covered some of that. And so we covered the injustice of it in our last interview. And how did the court case end? Like, what was the outcome of the court case?
Well, the outcome of the first court case was that the judge had put in a huge fine, $3 million plus fine, and my lawyer negotiated that we'd have an injunction filed by the judge if they would reduce the penalty to only a couple of $100,000 only. And so they did, but the initial fine would come back on if I violated the injunction. And so obviously thereafter they were looking to figure out how they can make it look like I violated the injunction so they can then get a couple of $1 million instead of a couple $100,000. And they then brought a second action in 2018, basically saying I violated the injunction and on a number of different grounds, which I can go into some of them.
Wait, can you first go back? What was the injunction? That you could no longer do what?
That I could no longer provide resources for people with unwanted same-sex attraction or, any other sexual issue that they were dealing with, but primarily SSA issues. But there was a specific exclusion in there that my right of free speech was still maintained, which of course in the second case, when they claimed that I was advocating for so-called conversion therapy.
Okay, so you're getting a little ahead of us though, right? You're talking about the second case?
Yeah, but I just want to say that they basically, in the second case, chose to ignore the idea that I had my free speech rights preserved.
Right. And so part of the settlement was that the ministry had to be shut down?
The JONAH ministry had to be shut down, and that I was no longer able to provide resources to people who sought resources for unwanted SSA or other sexual issues.
And so for people who haven't seen the previous interview yet, Arthur had a ministry called JONAH, and it was based in the Jewish faith, but offering people help in the Jewish tradition around dealing with SSA, unwanted same-sex attraction.
Correct, and it was for people of all faiths or no faith, as we used to lovingly say.
Yep,
Okay.
it was based on Noahide law, if you will. And so now we have the settlement. You move on. So you shut down Jonah. It's gone.
Correct.
As an entity. And then what happens next?
Well, I created a new entity that was purely religious in its mission called JIFGA. And JIFGA was an organization that basically advocated to educate people about the existence of the Noahide laws, which way oversimplified are 7 of the 10 commandments, and was given by God to Noah at the conclusion of the flood to say, hey, this is, if you guys want to live a good life, here's what to do, kind of thing.
What does JIFGA stand for?
I'm sorry?
The acronym JIFGA. What was it standing for?
Jewish Institute for Global Awareness.
That's right.
And then there was a project that JIFGA started.
Well, we started many different projects. One of the ones that got us in great trouble, which you know a lot about as an internet guru, was we set up a crowdfunding site called Funding Morality. And Funding Morality was a site that was designed to counteract the cancel culture of the GoFundMe's and the other other crowdfunding sites that were out there, and to allow people who believed in pro-life causes, pro-family causes, religious causes. We had a lot of Catholic priests who came on our site looking for money for various things. Mark Judge of Kavanaugh hearing fame, et cetera, et cetera. We had a number of people come on our site that were looking to raise money. Well, one of the appeals that went on our site was from the Nicolosi family. Joe Nicolosi, God rest his soul, after he died, the Nicolosi family wanted to do a video that talked about his life and his work and all that kind of thing. So we said, sure, great, so they put it on. They raised a decent amount of money. I don't remember exactly how much it was, but they raised a decent amount of money for the video. Well, the other side said, aha, this is proof of the fact that you are advocating for so-called conversion therapy, because everyone knows that Nicolosi was the originator of what they call reparative therapy, and you're trying to raise money for that, so therefore you're liable. Well,
so real quick, Arthur. So what I heard was the Nicolosi family wanted to do a eulogy of their father and create a video, and that's what they were saying is conversion therapy.
That was advocacy of conversion therapy.
It was advocacy. Now, this is really interesting, Arthur, because Andrew, I don't know if you remember this, but after I testified at the United Nations, the next day that happened, Media Matters came after us.
Yep.
And they demanded that we be erased off of Facebook. And they said, because we were doing conversion therapy. And when you follow the links, one of the links that they said was conversion therapy was your eulogy to Cy Rogers.
Yeah.
We weren't talking anything about homosexuality or anything other than eulogizing a minister. And so here they call that conversion therapy. And Arthur, he creates a nonprofit or this project that people can raise funds for their own missions, their own ideas. And the Nicolosi family wanted to have a eulogy, which, you try to go to GoFundMe, they're going to shut him down. So he goes to a place that isn't going to censor, a eulogy at Funding Morality. So Arthur, it's interesting that's what they chose, was a eulogy. It's not even overt.
Was it a training program? It wasn't like a
Nothing.
seminar series to do.
That's historical thing. It's talking about the past.
Right.
And you can't even have a eulogy without being labeled conversion therapy.
Well, and the problem is that the judge totally misapplied the law, because as you well know, Darren, because you're the one who educated me about Section 230 of CDA, Communication Decency Act. Basically, it says that the host of a internet site is not liable for what third parties put on that site. Mm-hmm. And you're the one who told me, make sure you talk to your lawyers about this as one of your key defenses.
Yeah. So for the record, I helped write a CDA 230 defense for Arthur on that. Mm-hmm. And the law says that YouTube isn't responsible for the videos that's hosted on there. And, neither is Facebook. The content, they're not the publishers of it. They're just an internet host. And so one of his defense was, look, someone came to Funding Morality. They raised funds for a eulogy. I'm not responsible for their behavior. But yet the judge is pegging him as, well, you allowed it, therefore you're culpable for it. So this is actually a really bad precedent for the internet. Yeah. When you think about it.
Absolutely.
They ruled against Arthur for the content that he didn't create, but because he hosted it, he's liable for it.
Correct. That's exactly right. And the appellate courts chose basically to ignore those arguments. I mean, mm-hmm. both the appellate division and the Supreme Court basically chose to ignore the Section 230 argument. They basically said, oh, well, yeah, this is advocacy. You have something in there about conversion therapy, so-called conversion therapy. So therefore, and it was like a one-liner, if that. I mean, it's unbelievable. I to this day, I still can't believe that all these people who are, internet gurus who are talking about you can't shut down the internet, they should have come and defended me. But of course they didn't.
So who did come to your defense?
People who were former strugglers, therapists. There were like 20 or 25 therapists that signed what they call an amicus brief, a friend of court brief. Andrew, I believe, was one of them, as I recall correctly. Yeah. Also, Family Research Council, a major pro-family organization in Washington, D.C., they signed an amicus brief. New Yorkers for Constitutional Freedom also signed a brief. So we had a number of amicus briefs that were filed, which, of course, the court chose to totally ignore.
And that's an interesting point when you talk about the constitutional groups, and you had mentioned earlier First Amendment. I'm confused how they can arrive at pegging you. So was there any other things that they brought forward that say, oh, well, he's participating in conversion therapy and it's worth the $3 million fine?
Yeah, well, there are a couple of different things. One was they used what they call the alter ego theory, which was that Jifka, because we used the same physical office, and used the same phone number that the old Jonah had, they essentially said, oh, Jifka is simply an alter ego of the old Jonah, in spite of the fact there's a totally different mission statement, totally different activities. We had nothing to do with conversion therapy, but the judge said, no, you're just an alter ego. You're trying to avoid it by creating a new entity. The judge also, went to a bunch of constitutional things, again, anti-constitutional things, basically denying me of freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of association, which I can go into in a few minutes if you'd like. But I mean, it was an abortion.
That's interesting. I mean, those are kind of, to me, bad arguments on a judge or to allow is, okay, so if Arthur has a nonprofit organization, he's practicing his faith with Jonah. Okay, well, he has to have a life. He's going to live in his calling and his skills. And so he goes and creates something that has nothing to do with conversion therapy. So if he has a lease, he has to keep paying the Jonah lease to finish that off. And he can't use the same building. He's got to pick up all his materials, find a different building. Otherwise, it's the same ego. Like, right. Alter ego, that doesn't make any sense. Like if you've got a building, you've got your desk in there, the judge literally expects you to up and move your building because the building is part of Jonah?
That's in effect what he said.
Were there other ways that they're kind of tracking your behavior and your actions and
Well, yeah,
contacts?
they actually, through the depositions, they requested and the judge gave them access to all of my emails, and they went through literally 70,000 emails of mine trying to
Oh my
find, something that would be condemnatory, taken out of context, of course.
Huh.
For example, one case, someone asked me for the phone number and address of a particular therapist, mentioned the name of the therapist. So I wrote back and I said, oh yeah, you can reach the guy at da-da, okay? It wasn't a referral, but they said, oh, he's referring reparative therapists to people.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm saying, give me a break, would you? I mean, the guy asked me, gave the guy's name and said, I don't have his current email or phone number. Would you give it to me? That's not a referral.
Yeah.
That's not asking for.
They already were aware of the clinician.
I'm sorry?
They're already aware of the clinician. Just
They're
asking
totally aware of the clinician. I assume used the guy before. Maybe they didn't. I don't know. But if someone asked me how do I get in touch with Darren Mell or Andrew Rodriguez, I'd say, oh yeah, here's their contact information.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the email had nothing to do with the motivation, the content, the services, nothing. It just, what's the name and number of this person? That's information that you have. That's
correct. And that's an example of one of the emails they used to go to against me. I mean, another thing, there are a lot of also what they call evidentiary here issues. Mm-hmm. I mean, for example, there are a couple of therapists that I had referred people to, but not for conversion therapy. I had referred them for marital counseling, for example, or other things along those. One guy was sex addiction issues, and we actually had statements signed and sworn to by the individual therapist saying, no, I did not do conversion therapy with this guy that Goldberg referred to us. I did marriage therapy, or I did whatever, sexual addiction issues, whatever it may be. Judge said, no matter. It's all the same thing. It's all conversion therapy.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we never had an evidentiary hearing, in spite of the fact that we had sworn affidavits, sworn statements from these therapists saying that they weren't doing conversion therapy and the referral was not for conversion therapy, which is the only thing that would have otherwise violated the injunction.
So again, just like Jonah, the complaint gets to come forward, but you don't get to defend yourself.
Correct.
And they just dismiss any initial defense that you would have and say, no, we're just deciding without the evidentiary hearing, we're just going to decide any type of therapy. Arthur, even talking to people about anything that has to do with therapy, is conversion therapy.
Right.
So
that's effectively what the judge.
It's effectively what it's doing. It's putting a chill on Arthur that his network of friends and professionals that he knows for marriage counseling, for addiction issues. No, you can't help anybody in the healing ministry. You can't help anybody because you are disqualified to do anything that that God has called you to do. Giving you these gifts and networks.
And it's creating a blacklist as well of other therapists because it assumes it's sort of they name names. It's like a Cold War witch hunt.
Absolutely.
Or like the commies coming after you.
Yeah, we're back to Coffeeite versions here.
Yeah. Once you're an undesirable, always an undesirable. Once a conversion therapist, that's the only thing you can ever do.
Exactly.
Because I helped prepare the one amicus brief for Arthur, where it was addressing that issue. Well, if he gives the contact information for a therapist that had done therapy for unwanted same-sex attraction in the past, if he gives that out, is it for that issue all the time? No. Like, for me, guys with same-sex attraction struggles, that's like a third of my caseload. So someone could refer a client to me. It might not be for that, be for a whole range of issues. Mm-hmm. The therapists in this field don't just do this work on this issue. Some might.
Yeah, exactly, Andrew. I mean, as you well know, as a therapist, you do a broad range of issues that people are dealing with. I mean, you're dealing with the person's overall mental health.
Yep, that's a good holistic therapeutic approach. And we deal through the issues the clients bring to us. I'm not imposing anything on anyone anyway. So it just shows the bias that they already had going into this case. This was a witch hunt. They want to make an example out of you.
Correct. Absolutely correct. And it gets worse because then one of the new provisions that the judge did is he barred me from ever serving as an officer or director of any other New Jersey not-for-profit organization in my lifetime. And I'm saying, hello, what does this have? I mean, this is non-profit organizations that may be, religious in nature, may be pro-life in nature, may be political in nature. It could be anything. I mean, but he didn't limit it to saying, okay, organizations that deal with so-called conversion therapy. No, he did it much broader than that. Finally, I was able to get some exclusion because I'm president of my local synagogue and I'm on the board of directors of my local condominium association. So they allowed, though he says, okay, I'll give an exception for these two nonprofits.
Wow.
This judge should be removed from the bench because that's against the Constitution.
He's retired now.
Oh, he's retired.
Yeah.
So on the constitutional side of things, if we just contemplate what happened here, like they're abridging your speech, they're abridging your right to assemble. They're telling you what you can and cannot work, where, how you make a livelihood. Like it seems like the government owns you at this point.
Oh yeah, this is political correctness to its what's the word I'm looking for?
It's extrapolating it to its end. It's exactly where this PC movement's always been going. It's tyranny.
It totally is tyranny. It's that they really don't want to brook any dissent, any compromise of what is now going to be a new state religion. I mean, that's really what we're dealing with. A secularized state religion that they brook no dissent. And it's a very aggressive form of trying to overcome anyone who's an opponent to it, which is why, I'm hoping that people will eventually, and some people have, given me some funding to help me pay some of these ridiculous fines. I actually have a crowdfunding site set up that LifeSite News, which is very much of a pro-life newspaper, they've set up for me. It's called lifefunder.com/therapy. And I'm raising money through that, and then people send me checks directly and whatever. But it's, in fact, one of the things that really is incredible to me, about 45 or 50 years ago, I bought my own house that I'm in condominium that I'm on the board of, and I paid back then, I forget now, $45,000 or something like that. Of course, now it's 40, 50 years later, and I need to raise cash to pay these stupid fines. So I went to the bank and I got $1 million loan on what I paid $45,000 for originally. So I used that $1 million to put a down payment on the fines.
Oh my gosh! Wow!
But now
money's down the toilet.
But now I got to pay $6,000 or $7,000 a month to pay off the loan from the bank.
Yeah.
So you become a slave to the LGBT lobby's injustice done against you through a biased, unconstitutional, I'd say a wicked judge, but
well said.
Yeah. So now you're a slave of them and you're going to be serving their dogma by funding them. And they're going to raise this Jonah case and the Jifka case as we'll take you down too, because we have the courts on our side. They have one judge that they've cherry picked that was on their side. But this is the game that they play. This is their bully pulpit.
Well, absolutely. And they've used the whole idea of consumer fraud. I mean, Biden is now trying to outlaw conversion therapy nationally. And
yeah. No, I've been trying to tell my friends and family, we're all on the we have targets on our back.
Yeah, but I'm sure you're well aware of the fact that what he's citing is he's talking about this is a consumer fraud. He's using the same language.
Yes.
From the original case, the original Jonah case, but now he wants to do it nationally on the whole basis. I mean, I've never seen anything so ludicrous. I mean, whatever happened to the fact that, My body, my choice. That's what the liberals say, right? Well, my body, my choice, my mind is also those people who are unhappy with same-sex attraction.
Yep. Only approved viewpoints allowed.
Correct.
So with the outcome of this, what's next for you? Like, yeah, you're raising funds, but like the government's allowed you to be on your HOA and to be in your synagogue, to be involved in that. What's next? Like, how do you go forward in life, Arthur?
Really good question. I'm not sure. I mean, right now I'm spending most of my time, unfortunately, struggling to try to raise funding. And you know, I anyone know a good benefactor? Oh yeah, great. You know, and even small contributions help. I mean, you know, some people send in, like I have this one guy now that's been sending me literally $18 a month for the last 9 months. God bless him. And he's a guy that we helped years and years and years ago. And he said, I'm ever grateful to you. So that's his way of doing it. On the other hand, thank God I have gotten one or two substantial grants. I got one guy gave him $40,000, another guy gave $50,000. So, you know, this is those help, but still have a huge way to go against $3 million. Let me tell you, and particularly, you know, now that I've also got a personal debt on my home mortgage, I got to, you know, worry about paying that off. So I'm spending most of my time doing that right now, honestly.
I got to ask, because I'm sure that people are watching this are going to say, well, why don't you just appeal this?
I did appeal. I appealed to the appellate division. They totally, you know, how do I phrase this? Totally ignored most of the arguments, and basically said, oh, yeah, it's fine. I then went to the Supreme Court of the state of New Jersey, and they sat on my appeal for 6 months, and they finally came down with a one-liner that said, we're not hearing the appeal. I've spoken to the lawyers about going to the Supreme Court of the United States, and they believe that, you know, one in 1,000 cases that get appealed to the Supreme Court of the United States actually get heard. And my lawyers basically tell me chances of them actually hearing this case is, you know, between de minimis and none.
And, you know, my experience with the court system is it's really expensive.
Oh my God. I mean, I paid a couple of $100,000 in legal fees all going up and down the court system.
Yeah. And so to go to the Supreme Court and argue this there, and do all that work, is that it's like would cost more than what you have available. So you don't get justice.
I mean, there's
no
way I could have afforded it, to be honest about it.
Yeah.
So you don't need to throw you in a gulag if you could just sue someone into oblivion.
Right.
Yeah. So now you're in the LGBT jail, for lack of a better term.
Well put.
Yeah, you've been thrown in the ideological jail through the court system. And, you know, just historically speaking, Andrew and Arthur, if you look at New Jersey, I vaguely remember this, but I believe this to be true, from Christopher Doyle, who founded Voice of the Voiceless, that when they were passing the conversion therapy and fraud bill there in New Jersey, they had someone that was lying in their testimony.
Yeah.
And was saying that they went to a camp, right?
Right.
And Arthur, correct me if I get any of this wrong, because I think you were probably there.
You know, yes, I heard.
Yeah, you were at the hearing. And so the way I understood it was that this person was giving a story about going to this conversion camp and all these horrible things that happened. And Christopher Doyle, our founder of Voice of the Voiceless, investigated it and went to Illinois, where this person said this camp was, and found out that there was no such thing in Illinois.
And it was Ohio, but I'm not sure. But it was
Ohio.
Yeah, it was Ohio, I think.
Sorry, in Ohio, and that there was no such camp. That he had done what I would say was very solid research.
Just the one that was actually made up from the RuPaul movie.
Well, that's what I was going to say. It was a plot. It was word for word plot from a RuPaul movie, which is RuPaul is a drag queen, a man who presents as a woman and has a show now that attracts children.
It shows you how little work the lawyers did in discovery. They didn't even verify this. They just go and let that be a testimony.
Well, that was for the law, and it gets worse because then the bill gets passed by the legislature and it goes to Chris Christie, And Christopher Doyle told me that he reached out to Chris Christie and told him that it was based on false testimony, and that Chris Christie, governor of New Jersey, so this is the spirit over New Jersey, is what I'm getting at. It's a spiritual thing. The spirit over New Jersey is lying and lawlessness. Is Christie said, I don't care, we need to pass this law anyways.
Well, I wouldn't trust Chris Christie as far as I could throw him. That's not far.
My point is that these conversion therapy arguments are lies, and the spirit of lawlessness doesn't care. That is, lies go along with lawlessness. And so Arthur has been robbed because of this long history of lawlessness. The fruit of it is Arthur has been on the receiving end of the fruit of these conversion therapy bans, because that was initially what they came under, was consumer fraud. And now that's, what they try to do in AB 2943, and what they try to do in Minnesota, what they're trying to do with the Equality Act, what Biden is trying to do with the executive order. And Arthur, Andrew and I just did a interview or a podcast about the executive order and the harm that it would do to the church, that it's a direct bullseye on people of faith. And so just like it took out Jonah and Jifka, you can't even raise funds for a eulogy if that person was involved in conversion therapy. You don't get an honorable burial in your faith. I mean, I'm not joking. I mean, I'm not being facetious. That this is the spirit that we're dealing with, is they want our destruction. They don't want any honor or recognition of our lives or of our faith. They have a state faith, secular humanism or paganism, depending on your bent, and they want that to be the law of the land. It's tyranny, and it goes against the First Amendment. Arthur is not allowed to speak. I mean, even in email just saying, hey, what's that person's contact number? Just because Arthur has contact with people who are therapists who might do conversion therapy, they want to send a chill effect. They want to scare and intimidate anybody of faith that wants to teach this stuff out of the ministry, out of their faith.
Yeah,
Arthur, any last words?
What we have today is an aggressive secularism that seeks to drive religious belief into the margins of society, into the outreaches, the margins, totally out there, and they want to therefore confront our culture with a new secular woke religion on race, on sex, on gender. I mean, it's all over the place. I mean, it's incredible. I mean, I turn on the news every day and I say, where am I? Where am I?
Sure don't feel like America.
It sure doesn't.
This should outrage or frighten every freedom-loving American, Christian or Jewish or not. It doesn't matter.
Absolutely.
If you value this country and what we
Muslim,
always
Buddhist, I mean, whatever. Every freedom-loving person of any religion. But they're trying to literally drive religion into the outreaches, the margins, the margins of society. That's what they're trying to do.
Wow.
Thank God for the Supreme Court in terms of some of the cases they've come down with recently, not only the pro-life case, but also the freedom of religion case, the one in Maine, some of the other ones they've come down with. I mean, it's just, but they chose to ignore it. I mean, the guy in Maine, the Attorney General said, I'm ignoring the resolution. I'm ignoring the court's decision. But that's what Biden has done in some of the other things. I mean, the whole thing about the pro-life issue, I mean, give me a break. I mean, they're supposed to go back to the states, so let the states decide.
Wow. No, guys, this is a really big deal. And Arthur, our prayers are with you, and you have our support. May God give you justice in this lifetime, but he certainly will judge those and give justice to what is due to those who have come against the truth and the ministry that you've been doing. So thank you for your time. We will touch base again, hopefully in the near future.
Thank you so much. And if I may just one more time mention the crowdfunding site that I do have, it's lifefunder.com/therapy.
Yeah.
And I'll be sure to add that on the links and as an overlay. So thank you, Andrew and Arthur, for being here, and God bless.
Thank you.
Take care, guys.
Take care.